Well, a very good afternoon, everybody. Dear President Jacobs, President of the World Academy of Art and Sciences, President Klaus Mainzer of the European Academy of Sciences and Arts, dear ladies and gentlemen, and of course, a warm welcome to our online audience. Today is a historic moment. We have the first meeting ever of both largest associations, European Academy of Sciences and Arts and the World Academy of Arts and Sciences. And the meeting is taking place in Maribor. So we're really happy to have this international audience present. It will be a very dynamic session today, so I hope everybody will stick to the suggested times because we want to be finished in 1.5 hours. We have some people present in Maribor, and there will also be some people joining us on Zoom online. And now we have the time and possibility to give word to the Honorary President of Art and Sciences, Professor Dr. Ivo Schlaus, who is joining us online from Zagreb. Professor Schlaus, we see you. Do we hear you?
Okay. Good afternoon. It is a great pleasure, and thank you very much, Tanya, for these kind words and for putting actually the importance of this meeting at the focus. I'm very proud to be at this meeting, and I will convince you in few minutes why should we all feel proud. Academia, of course, throughout more than 3,000 years, has helped societies to minimize threats and maximize successes. And indeed, success is great. The present world is the best ever, and that is quite important. Contemporary world is fast changing, global, but still within this global, there are many states and many associations of states, and all of them are interdependent. And consequently, of course, there are national, regional, world academies, and association of academies, like, for instance, ALEA, Inter-Academy Partnership, and so on. Academies interact widely. First, with scientific disciplines, which is essential. But second, equally essential, is education. And in all of these, actually, they go through and strongly interact with what is called states. And therefore, with politics and economy, and indeed, maybe more than anything else, it is academia which shows that it is essential to change the present paradigm, social, political, and economic. And of course, the World Academy has emphasized that through many years, as a matter of fact, through roughly 20 last years. Let's concentrate on the threats that the contemporary world faces. The first, or actually the last threats that came, is the threats which is due to new emerging technologies. Of course, as always in history, technologies contain benefits and also threats. And it is our duty to increase the benefits and to decrease the threats. But the development of new economies, of new technologies is inevitable. There is nothing we can do to just prohibit them from developing. New technologies are emerging. The second threat is due to the fact that we have largely destroyed our natural and human capital. As a matter of fact, we have barely 30, possibly 40 years to remedy this damage. And the third threat, which nowadays is particularly dangerous is war. And the task which before us is stop all wars now and forever. And that is absolutely crucial. And in that process of stopping the war, the World Academy and the Academy of European Academies should actually interact strongly with scientific disciplines, with new technologies, with education. And it is so nice that actually one of the organizers of this, besides the two academies, is alma mater Europea. And this is I still remember when I was invited by alma mater several years ago to give a talk here. So this connection with education, which means with a number of academia and with the Association of Academia and within World Academy of Art and Science, or rather stimulated by, we have initiated formation of World University Consortium. It is important to maintain contact with what is called, Eisenhower properly called it, military-industrial complex. And of course, with any governments. Now, this is one of the first meetings involving three essential of these factors. One, a regional academy, European Academy. One, World Academy, WAAS, World Academy of Art and Science. Education, alma mater. And of course, since we all belong to some states, our states are involved. And we hope to bring them to the possibility of stopping all wars immediately. This task is not easy, but this webinar and several other activities that we have and what we will have will obviously help us to formulate how to stop it, how to make it forever. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Professor Schlaus, who deserves an applause. Professor Schlaus talked about threats posed by emerging technologies and how the initiative should also support stopping the war, which is in fact the topic of today's dialogue on sustainable future, education, artificial intelligence, and peace. And I would like to continue now with the Vice President of the World Academy of Arts and Sciences, Donato Kiniger Pasilli, who will present the vision statement for a new peace offensive.
Dear Professor Mainzer, Professor Toplek, our guest, our host, Gary, of course, Ivo, thank you very much for hosting us here today. And all the distinguished guests that we have online as well, I want to salute them as well. My task is, as Daniel said, to illustrate our vision, our common vision for a new global peace offensive. I'll try to do so. Recognizing the dangers of current wars and the urgency of the moment, the World Academy of Art and Science and the European Academy of Science and Art came together and crafted a vision for a global peace offensive. This initiative, as you will see later on in the official signing of the document itself, aims to identify practical measures to change direction and lessen the intensity of confrontations through a global peace effort. focusing on incremental, reciprocal steps for conflict resolution. It emphasizes cultural, scientific, economic, educational, and environmental diplomacy, alongside political, economic, and media systems. The world we navigate is both multipolar and multi-perspective, requiring a deeper understanding of our environmental surroundings and the world we inhabit. We must understand what drives individuals and groups, including students and future generations. Complex environments do require a vision ahead on how things can be done when the deadlock is resolved, building trust, avoiding dehumanization, double standards, and forgotten conflicts. As complexity grows, it is essential to integrate multidisciplinary perspectives throughout our educational systems, curricula, and evaluations. International cultural awareness should not be seen as barriers or demarcation lines. This is not the time for apologetic outcries or defensive strategy to conceal our own beliefs. Such awareness should be accompanied by deep consciousness of our cultural heritage and history. Arts and science advancements are indispensable for having a forward-looking vision and for transmitting knowledge with a deep sense of humanity, inspired by critical thinking and informed decisions. Throughout our vision statement for a global peace offensive, we have a unique responsibility to work towards trust-building initiatives, assessing the needs and claims of all parties in any given conflict, giving a voice to all stakeholders, and reinforcing promising international cultural exchanges and collaboration. A vision of human security rooted in peace, human rights, and individual progress acts as the true gatekeeper of our society. Even in the face of deep divides, we need to enhance literacy, advance science, and ensure that the quality of our studies reflects human aspirations. We must encourage students to learn how to learn, orienting themselves in the labyrinth of information, artificial intelligence products, and the vast galaxy of data. We know that artificial intelligence is a double-edged sword, has a dual role. Undoubtedly, artificial intelligence can enhance intergenerational dialogue and help bridge the gap between developed and developing countries. Artificial intelligence systems can act as multipliers for both war and peace, fostering mutual understanding or dystopian scenarios. They could help predict armed conflicts and their root causes, and also devise optimal interventions to avert major crises. By analyzing behavioral changes and megatrends, we can avoid spiraling into crisis. Optimizing interventions and fostering cross-disciplinary collaboration is crucial for improving intergroup relations. Artificial intelligence is also a tool for peace building and diplomacy, as we know, and can become akin to an autonomous weapon as well, beyond human control, but it could also ease tensions by controlling or resolving existential threats and analyzing vast data sets. Predictive diplomacy and predictive peace building uses machine learning nowadays for scenario planning towards achieving peace. Traditional tools of politics and diplomacy are becoming outdated, especially with looming threats emanating from climate change, polarization, forced migration, and extreme violence. Science diplomacy relies on interdisciplinary work that unites political science, mathematics, and behavioral science, including branches like computational diplomacy and negotiation engineering. Text mining, as an example, for diplomatic relations, is a modern application that can enhance cooperation and improve outcomes of negotiation processes. Our vision statement calls for innovative educational models that combines artificial intelligence and the mobilization of social networks that significantly influence political decisions and global peace dynamics. We aim to identify, create, and project peace-building opportunities, facilitate dialogue between conflicting parties, improve decision-making, analysis, and narratives through innovation, conflict resolution techniques, and strategies. We will explore together ways to expand our efforts on a multi-regional scale and attract also human, financial, and other resources for our mission. A vast field of opportunity exists for prediction and anticipation, backed by enormous data sets. Examples are in diplomacy are resolutions, for instance, negotiations, products like statements, reports of the Secretary General of the United Nations, imagine whatsoever. I mean, reports of the Security Council. There is a lot that is part of our acquis. But data and computational modeling could improve our understanding of how multilateral organizations function and influence diplomatic processes. Although negotiation engineering won't replace face-to-face diplomacy, it can help build trust with accurate data and prediction. Media monitoring and analysis is another application where machine learning can anticipate conflict escalation, exemplified by inflammatory speeches, and support informed decision-making. Peace modeling to tackle climate change is another potential application. The issue of fake news is pertinent. Addressing data veracity is a critical research area. Artificial intelligence could assist, but also could risk creating distorted data leading to an artificial truth. But it's also true that artificial intelligence information can be checked by alternative artificial intelligence systems. So what is the future of science diplomacy? Training science diplomats, building their capacity, and evaluating progress will become essential in the near future. Shared interests and goals in science diplomacy are expanding already, with non-state actors increasingly involved in technological progress. Emerging economies are well positioned to use science diplomacy to prevent conflict and inequalities, create new norms, and extend their influence. The soft power of diplomacy can help advance global common interests alongside the hard power of science. Global issues like climate change and pandemic preparedness requires transnational strategies based on trust building, international exchanges, and collaboration. We hereby invite the academic community altogether, intellectuals and global leaders to support our common vision, individually and institutionally. So we join forces to build a bright, secure, and peaceful future for all. Thank you.
A lot of very interesting suggestions. Just perhaps one question. Why this vision and why now?
Very good question, Professor Engleitner. Why a vision, first of all, and not another statement or declaration? Because the vision that we have nurtured together is an action-oriented program, is not just a flagship to flag something to the public attention, is a strategy in terms of how we can operate. The plan, the reason why we are here today is exactly this, to show the fact that we are committed towards a new way of learning, a new way of teaching, a new sense of solidarity among institutions, and a common objective that is contribute to this peace offensive, turning down, and anticipating crisis in many places and de-escalating tensions through the common exercise that it goes together with the traditional techniques and the innovative techniques offered by artificial intelligence.
There will definitely be plenty of opportunities later on to further delve into this subject. Let us now continue with the president of the European Academy of Sciences and Arts. Since the majority of the present members is from the World Academy, let me just take a brief moment to introduce our speaker. Professor Dr. Klaus Mainzer is a philosopher and scientist, both together. And just to say that in the 70s, he wrote his doctorate in philosophy and mathematics together, talking about the fundamentals, about mathematical constructivism. And I'm sure that in his presentation, he will enlighten us about all of these contents and how they fit within the education, artificial intelligence, and peace. Professor Mainzer, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for this nice introduction. And it's a great a pleasure for me now to introduce this first meeting of the World Academy of Arts and Science and the European Academy of Sciences and Arts, but of course vice versa. And Ludwig asked me to give a talk exactly to this topic here, AI and peace. And the subtitle here is From Foundational Research to European Policy of Democracy. And actually, I will start with a short reminder, breakthroughs of AI, and then we'll come to the topic, peace with sustainable AI. Now let's start with a short reminder. What is artificial intelligence? The project as a scientific project started in the beginning of the 50s. It started with a famous paper of Alan Turing, the British mathematician and computer pioneer from 1950. And that is the so-called Turing test. What does the Turing test mean? It means that according and following Turing, a system, for example, a machine, should be called intelligent if it cannot be distinguished concerning its answers and its reaction from a human being. And in the beginning of the 50s, people tried to simulate logical thinking because they thought logic, that is in the center of human intelligence. And they were rather successful because they supported what we now call automated proving. That means the system simulates these if-then rules in logic. If this and this is the case, then this and this followed, and so on. And then it was also applied to practice. These are the so-called expert systems. For example, in medicine, the idea, if you observe some symptoms of a disease, then you have an automative deductive formalism, which is suggesting you the concerning disease. But exactly at that point, the restrictions of this approach become obvious. In the 60s or 70s, people realized, oh, human intelligence, human experts, they cannot be restricted to logical if-then rules. Human expert in engineering or in medicine, he have some intuition, he have some unconscious abilities, and that cannot be represented textbook-like in if-then rules. And another restriction was in pattern recognition. For example, if you observe a photo consists of millions of pixels, and it makes absolutely no sense to introduce logical rules for each of these pixels. And a single pixel is absolutely uninteresting. Only the statistical distribution is necessary to get an impression of the shape of the figure of a person. And so, and that is illustrated here in the picture. In the end of the 70s and the beginning of the 80s, we observe a paradigm shift in AI, namely from the logical-oriented algorithms to statistics, to the statistics of big data, to statistical learning theory. And machine learning nowadays is based on statistical learning theory. Of course, if you have these big data-based systems, then you get some proof that actually the program is doing what it should do. And that needs logical algorithms. So this old idea comes in again, and the combination of logical algorithms with the statistical learning algorithm is sometimes called hybrid AI. Symbolic AI means a logical oriented AI oriented to symbolic logic, and sub-symbolic AI means this kind of machine learning. Nowadays, machine learning is mainly orientated to a simplified model of the human brain. And these are the neural networks. The neural networks here in the graph consist of some nodes. The nodes represent the neurons in the brain, and the arrows represent the synaptical interactions. And in the graph, they are weighted by numbers. The numbers indicate the intensity of the neurochemical interaction. And then such a node or neuron is said to be excited or to fire if the sum of the weighted inputs of the neighbored here of the neighbored neurons is larger than a certain threshold value. And by that, you get a stream of signals, a data stream, which is led here through the architecture of the neural network. And these data streams are triggered by so-called learning algorithms. And we distinguish several kinds of learning algorithms. For example, supervised learning means that at first the system is trained by some sample, for example, of a photo with these statistical distributed pixels, and then the system is by itself able to recognize exactly this trained photo by approximation with a lot of other perceived photos of persons that was used by police hunting, for example, criminal persons in many years. Reinforcement learning means that the system is by itself, and that is amazing. It's by itself able to improve its problem-solving strategy by rewards from the outside. Deep learning only relates to the depth of the neural network, and that means the number of layers. It is, by the way, like in the neocortex of the human brain. The human brain is divided into certain layers, like an Italian lasagna, by the way, and that is illustrated here. For example, at the first layer, only colored pixels are distinguished, then they are connected as edges and corners, then as partial faces, and finally the recognition of the whole faces. And that is in principle all. That means machine learning, namely recognition of patterns in big data by learning algorithms. Nowadays, these systems are not as simple as I illustrated before, namely ChatGPT since the last year, and with that kind of machine learning, AI has arrived in everyday world of everyone. And these systems consist not only of 4 or 5 layers, they consist of hundreds, they consist of thousands of layers. Remember, the brain, 5 or 6 or 7 layers. And it consists of millions of neurons and billions of these synaptic weights, which I mentioned before. And it is amazing, and for some people nowadays even shocking, that these kind of simulating machine learning programs are able even to pass the Turing test at universities. That means to pass examinations and tests, at least with relation to a written text. And some people are shocked by that, but I must say from a mathematical point of view, don't worry, because let us have a short glance in the machine room of such a chatbot. And these are two of these learning algorithms which I mentioned before, namely supervised learning. Supervised learning means at first the system must be trained by a lot of documents. And the second, and that is perhaps the most interesting learning algorithm, the second one is this mentioned reinforcement learning. That means by interaction of the system with you as user, it learns to give better answers. Perhaps you have already these experiences. It is learning and it is self-training by that. But please don't forget, it is a statistical machinery. And from mathematical point of view, only these algorithms are calculating expectation, statistical expectation values of possible data, nothing more. And therefore, I like to call it sometimes a statistical parrot or a stochastic a parrot, but with an amazing efficiency nowadays. Now, another important point is because in the tradition intelligence, we think these are persons and or animals or robots. No, AI mainly nowadays is distributed in an anonymous way and in an unconscious way in infrastructure. We do not see it. And that is illustrated here in the picture. On the left and the right, you find some already names of some already existing infrastructures. And the perspective for the future will be that these already existing infrastructure will in the future grow together, like here in a metaphorical way, this brain which is spreading all over the world. And these are the already existing catchwords here of infrastructure, for example, smart city. Smart city, not only in Asia and in China, Shenzhen and near to Hong Kong, but also here in Europe, by the way, not in Germany, but in the Baltic state. That's very interesting, or in Ireland and so on. You can observe that there already. And now ecological systems. You can use nowadays these machine learning networks to supervise ecological system. In South Tyrol, in the north of Italy, for example, it is applied. Or smart grids, optimizing energetic networks, or industrial industry. Now that is a typical application for Germans. And that means the industry, the machines are equipped with sensors in order to communicate with one another, not only man-to-man or man-to-machine communication, but machine-to-machine communication by this kind of signals. And the global networks of the financial world, which cannot be realized nowadays without these rapid algorithms, financial algorithms, health system. That is a great challenge, not only AI in surgery, specialized, but the infrastructure in the hospital, that must be digitalized. And last but not least, we are living in time of wars. And our defense systems would not be possible nowadays without the support of AI and digital equipment. Now, with that in mind, this short breakthroughs from the beginning, Turing and so on, up to applications nowadays, now our topic, peace with sustainable AI. At first, let me remind you, our Earth is a highly complex system. And it was already a highly complex system before humans came in. Here are the typical factors: the climate, water, energy problem, biodiversity. And you see here in the picture, these factors, natural factors, are connected with feedback loops. And that means, in a mathematical sense, this is a highly complex, very sensible system, very sensible to local perturbation. And now human mankind comes in, and it becomes unbelievable complex. That is illustrated here. These natural factors are connected with the population growth, the growth of our industry, our social problems, our wars, whatsoever. A highly complex system, feedback loops, highly sensible to local perturbation. And sometimes such kind of complex systems are able to damp by itself the perturbation. That means it is able to be what we call resilient. That is like an organism. An organism which is ill can recover itself. And that is the idea of resilience, balance. And but sometimes the system can become turbulent and chaotic. That is the case of our climate models, which tell us that if you are beyond a certain critical value here, then there is no way back. Then it cannot return in the former state in principle. And then the system becomes uncontrollable and chaotic. And therefore, my first claim is concerning peace, peace with nature. Peace with nature seems to be metaphorically, but it means keep our planet in balance. That is our great challenge. And that is the condition of all kind of other pieces. That is illustrated here in these pictures. For example, here, the burning jungle in the region of the Amazon in Brazil, or in the Mediterranean region in Greece, for example. We have also these problems with a deep impact on our worldwide nutrition situation. And on the other side, the peace with us, peace with people, peace with population. We have these local wars everywhere in the world. And typical for the complex system dynamics is the relation between the local and the global effects. And here in war, we have local wars. Still local wars here in Europe, you know, and in the Near East, but with a great danger to become a global effect, and that means a world war. And so peace with nature and peace with nations is the great challenge. And I think that would be a real topic for our academies here. And that is already my last slide. How should we realize that? What means a policy? Now, from a European point of view, and you know, with our European Academy, we are also engaged in several activities in the EU concerning these problems. So I think the first task is we have to do our duty: decarbonization, peace with Earth. That means renewable energy, alternative fuels, and that is innovation. And by the way, that is the whole strategy behind that. My personal experience is, if people are in struggle, yeah, and in conflict, then let them work together in common projects. And common projects means sustainable and responsible innovation. So on the decarbonization task, we can realize sustainable development. For example, in economy, circular economy. Circular economy is exactly, from a formal point of view, is exactly the idea to find a kind of economy which is appropriate to these feedback loops. You remember, Yeah, and that is now realized in an economic way. And that is a highly complex challenge. It can only be done by the support of digital tools. And now AI come in as a useful tool to realize that. And the whole strategy, of course, should aim at what we nowadays call sustainable innovation. Sustainable innovation means very concretely the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs of the United Nations, must be integrated into our technologies and societal infrastructure. And I think that would be a nice challenge for our both academies and working together for the future. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much also to Professor Mainzer. A lot of points for discussion for sure. You were talking about global superbrain. So as a mathematician, we go from million, billion, trillion, where and above or beyond. Where can we go on from the global superbrain? Like, what would be the next step in your prediction, or should we ask ChatGPT for that?
The next step would be tomorrow. I have another speech, and I will go a little bit in this direction. But let me give a short hint. I mentioned here, also in this slide, the energy problem. And personally, I think, since my own engagement in this kind of research, the energy problem on this earth, with all its sustainable environmental problems, is closely connected with digitalization. And in the European Academy, Johannes will remember, we had an initiative of white papers, 2 white papers on the energy problems and on digitalization. And because digitalization means an enormous energy consumption nowadays. It will be the most energy on our Earth in the next year. And that is a problem. So we have to consider alternatives of computational architectures. And I think that will be a future in the next year. And I'm personally engaged in this kind of work. But here, for our discussion here, the point is, don't only consider AI in an isolated way, because the AI tools connect on energy, very physical efforts and demands, and we must consider both together. In the end, the common aim is what I called sustainable innovation. Innovation. AI is a tool in that initiative. It is not the goal. It is a tool. It can be a useful tool, but of course it can also be dangerous. It must be integrated.
All right. So thank you very much. We are looking forward to your address tomorrow morning for everybody who is joining us live for the promotion of the university. We're now continuing with the host of this event, Rector Professor Dr. Ludwig Toplak, Rector of the University Alma Mater Europea. Now, we were challenged already by Vice President Kinniger, who talked about the role of multidisciplinary perspective. And Professor Mainzer said something about the connectivity and building bridges, which is exactly what Alma Mater Europea University does. So Professor Toplak, could you enlighten us a little bit on what's going on within the University of Alma Mater Europea on this topic?
Thank you for the opportunity. Distinguished guests, President Gary Jacobs, President of WAAS, Klaus Mainzer, and all other dear friends. We're very proud and happy organizing this meeting. Alma Mater Europea is a university, but we feel the need for broader approach how to solve the real challenges of the today world. And we see that the world today is faced with turbulences. And the question is how to overcome political, economic, and ecological. Science and art could help a lot, and that's our right, our privilege, and as well our responsibility. The cooperation between these two so eminent representative academic networks like World Academy of Sciences and Arts and European Academy of Art and Science and European Academy of Sciences and Arts, this cooperation could be very useful. And let's start with a new approach. And we believe that the vision of a global peace offensive is the beginning for new paradigm, or new approach, and as well that way we could contribute to the peace. So the peace in the society, the peace with the nature, and as well the peace between people, individuals, so we can greet and express peace with you. Thank you.
We're now passing on the microphone to a representative from Institute Josef Stefan, Alexander Zidanšek. Now you'll be talking about artificial intelligence for peace, but with your background in sustainable development and physics. And we were challenged by Professor Mainzer, who said we need to make sure that we preserve nature in order to get peace. What are your reflections on that?
Thank you for a very nice starting point. And also thanks to all my predecessors for introducing these topics really nice. As a physicist, you know, there are like a few things that physicists have done even before my time. So the first was this nuclear bomb, which the physicists are responsible for. So that's why we also have a moral obligation to resolve the situation which followed because of this nuclear bomb. And the second thing that we are talking today, the artificial intelligence, I mean, when I was very young, we were like using Hopfield model, which means also artificial intelligence kind of originates from the spin system that the physicists have been doing. So we are kind of doubly responsible for the crisis that we face today. And now how to come out of this crisis is, of course, the challenge. And this challenge is, of course, greater today than ever in history, but so the opportunities are greater today than ever in history. And here I would say, on one hand, we have these short-term solutions. On the other hand, we have those long-term solutions. So as we know, the doomsday clock is at about 90 seconds, I think, which is the shortest time ever in history. Even during the Cuban crisis, it was not as bad as today, which means that we kind of need to bring people together. And just before a few days ago with Gary, we actually asked ChatGPT what you could do. And he gave us a lot of answers, I don't know, 10 pages, I guess. But one of the most important answers was the same as President mentioned before, get people to work together. So, which means that the chat actually can think similarly as we do. So this is like the short-term challenges. But the long-term challenges are, in my view, they are mainly rooted in education systems and better education all over the world so that people are learning to work together, to like each other, to at least love each other if they don't like each other, and also to come up with solutions, because we have like more than 8 billion people. Everybody can do something useful, and we can kind of convince people from the young age to work on solutions and to do something useful. Then I believe we have obtained a lot of progress towards our direction. So, for example, we are using now at our school, we are using these AI systems to kind of monitor the competencies of a student. We have like a small pilot. We are doing this in 2 courses this year to figure out what do they know when they come, and then try to monitor each lecture, how these competencies are improving towards the final destination so that they can do something really useful in their life, also in this future of the smart machines. So this would be like this long-term approach. And of course, we know that our world is kind of a little bit out of balance, especially with these superpowers, which are kind of overstepping their boundaries. And in order how to stop that, I believe that these artificial intelligence tools are going to help us. And also as physicists, we're going to develop new tools. I mean, these neural networks were developed like more than 40 years ago. I mean, even 80 years ago, if you look at the first tries, but these functional neural networks are actually about 15 years old, maybe. You know, computers are faster, neural networks are better, but in physics, we still have quantum computing. Then we have biological computing, which would like reduce the computing time. So the future is actually bright, and we just need to step into it.
Thank you very much. And this applause is for a bright future. We're now moving back to Zoom. With us, Goran Bando from, I think, Zagreb. We heard the point of view of a physicist and sustainable development. Now, again, Vice President Kinniger challenged us with something about inadequacy of traditional diplomacy and what could be the role of science diplomacy. And I believe this is a little bit of your background. So peace and diplomacy, what can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Tanya. I'm very glad to be here with you. I see in the room so many friends of mine. Hello, everyone. Not to say the names. My dear friends, the peace is the topic actually deep in me. As you probably already know, I'm a lawyer and political scientist, but deep in my heart, I'm peace researcher. Why peace? Long time ago, I was a young guy. I was only 13, and it started a war in my country. It started the war in my city. Someone bombarded my city, and 3 months I spent in the basement. After 3 months spent in basement, I left my country. I became a refugee child. I was alone. My family stayed back home, and I was alone 1 year as a refugee child in Germany. And in this refugee child time, I made it one decision, and that was probably not something I made it really decision. It was something inside of me. I decided I will do everything what is possible to do that anyone else suffer as I suffered, my family suffered, my nation suffered. And that is really, that's what I'm doing through my career. I'm very devoted to topic of peace. And I think really the peace is the most important topic, not only in my career, it's actually the most important topic in the world. We see that in the moment. When we are talking about peace, I think the most important dimension of peace is peace with us. That's the personal level of peace. Without this level of peace, it is not possible to do any other peace dimension. When we are talking about peace dimensions, we are concentrate today on the global peace. Between this personal level and this global level, we have different other levels, like, for example, peace with nature, as Klaus mentioned already, or peace with communities, peace, interstate peace. But I think really the most important is to have peace with ourselves. And with this peace with ourselves, we start then to find solutions. Probably, if it's possible, win-win solutions to any conflict in life. When we are talking about science diplomacy, Tanya, thank you to say that I'm expert in this. I think I know something about science diplomacy. I'm leading science diplomacy committee in the Global Young Academy based in Leopoldina in Germany. Science diplomacy is really important tool, and probably the most important tool in the hands of academies, in World Academy, European Academy, or each university. That is the most important tool. It is possible to divide science diplomacy in three aspects. The first aspect is science in diplomacy. That means actually science can provide advices to states, to international organizations in specific fields like peace or foreign policy. And we are really experts and they need advices. This science in diplomacy is really, really important. The second aspect for me is diplomacy for science. This means actually we can be someone who facilitate international and scientific collaboration. Never forget, scientists can open the doors which the state representatives can't. So for us, it's much easier to open any door in the world. For the state representatives, that is not so easy. They need to follow some rules. They need to follow some challenges they have already. And we don't. We can open without any problem. And the third aspect of science diplomacy is science for diplomacy. That can mean actually science cooperation can improve international relations. And I think that is really very important. And that is the main goal of World Academy. It is main goal of European Academy. And it is a goal of, I will say, for the Global Academy. For me, the science diplomacy has now the crucial role, especially in the time of conflict, escalation of conflict. And we are living really in very turbulent time, as Ludwig said already, it's very turbulent time in the world. We, as responsible scientists, we need to do something. And we can't forget something what is really important. Peace has no good alternative. Peace has no good alternative. And we need to repeat it all the time. We are responsible to find win-win solution for all actors, and we are responsible for the peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Goran Vando. Actually, three really, really big challenges for our next speaker, Anna Jerkovic from the Ministry of Foreign and European Affairs. Anna, science in diplomacy, diplomacy for science, and science for diplomacy. How would you say about that?
My topic is a little broader. It is related to global governance, and this that you mentioned, science within this global governance. I think it is very important, and I will briefly show how. And since I represent the social sciences, I will talk how the social sciences and humanities can help us in global governance and steering the humankind to sustainable peace. So my first point is related to establishing a sustainable global governance structure, and that means establishing a world parliament and a world government. We already have an initiative, which is the UN Parliamentary Assembly, and that is a kind of a world parliament that already has a lot of endorsers, organizations, politicians, members of parliament, and also scientists endorsing it. But also, I think we need a world government. And maybe this is also a good place to start talking about it. It is a very complex task, but we can use the example of the European Union, the European Commission, and the European Parliament, and maybe bring it on a higher level to see how a world parliament and the world government could work for humankind. My second point would be, we mentioned balance, which is very important, and I always like to mention gender balance. And when we look at today's world leaders, we see that it is a male-dominated world right now. And I would like to see more women as global leaders, at least to have a balance, and maybe in the future to have also a female-dominated world scene. I don't say that women leaders are better than male leaders. I think that we are equal, that we have the same weaknesses and strengths, but the energy is different. The energy is different, and maybe women have a different, more sophisticated senses for other matters within the society. So I would suggest a balance, which was also mentioned before. My third point is establishing a ministry of peace in every country. I think there are already some countries that have a ministry of peace, but I think that is really important that we have an institution, which is a state institution that is related to peace and coordinating peace activities, and also horizontally communicating with other ministries on joint goals, benchmarks, and objectives. Then I would like to emphasize the importance of education, what Alexander says. I think that peace education should be a subject in every school, not only in schools, but also on faculties and in lifelong learning. Peace education is very important. We can call it also citizenship education, but also a deeper education, something that is related to our emotional intelligence. I think that here also we lack balance because we have a highly developed rational part of the human being, but the emotional part is underdeveloped and unstable. The psychological part, we are anxious, we fear, we have the fear of the unknown, we have the fear of AI, for example. We have to learn tolerance, we have to learn about virtues, we have to learn about empathy and how to like each other, how to live in the society. So emotional and social skills. Also, I would like to emphasize the importance of media. I think we need the media to spread our messages because all the messages of peace that we send from here are usually stay within the academic environment. And we can use, this can be a win-win situation. We can use the digital platforms and the media in content creation and as a leverage to the general public. I think we need the general public. Also, related to this is peace language. I think that we will hear more about it later, but peace language, rhetorics, peace communication, nonviolent communication, using our words. The language is power. Using our words like these terms, peace offensive, like sustainable peace and science diplomacy also. These words that has to strengthen in the public sphere. I think the importance of language and of peace language, we have to put it out there. Also, something that I asked ChatGPT and it gave good answers. It's about creating a new economic model. And that is the one that is sustainable, that is the one that is resilient, and the one that is human-centric and not profit-oriented, a circular economy, of course, but something that has inside a meritocracy, but also equity. And last but not least is more peace campaigns. So organizations that work together like this, academies working together, faculties, universities, art academies, but also all individuals and NGOs, scientists, artists, literature, media, everyone working together for this peace offensive of ours.
Thank you very much. And also an applause for that perspective of the global governance for peace. We're now continuing with contributions for representatives from various fields, because we did hear earlier on that the perspective is multinational, multi-subject oriented. And let's start now with Ioannis Liritsis, who is a member of the European Academy of Sciences and Arts and Dean of Class Number 4 Natural Sciences, who will tell us a little bit about how archaeology can contribute to peace. Well, let's try to stick to the 3 minutes like before, so we'll be done until 7:30. Do we have a microphone on the other side? Not yet. Okay, good, wonderful, thank you. Archaeology for peace.
Thank you. Yes, that is actually the topic that I was given to develop. I'm not an archaeologist, I'm a physicist. Dear esteemed colleagues, first of all, I would like to thank the rector of AMEO and my good friend Ludwig Toplak for inviting me to present this topic. And I go straight to the point. I like the last talk because it was practical solutions, implementation, and right to the heart decision makers. But we can discuss, later, of course, about that. So I would like to say a few words about the archaeology, the arts, and not only science. We're going to the arts, but specifically speaking, cultural heritage and archaeology, because arts is a wider field. The idea that archaeology promotes peace stems from the way it fosters understanding, appreciation, and shared heritage between different cultures and different communities. While this might not always be immediately obvious, archaeology can contribute to peace building in several key ways. First, I would say 7 out of many, but the main ones. Shared cultural heritage. Archaeology and cultural heritage uncovers the common threads that link humanity across time and space. By revealing the interconnectedness of past civilizations, it shows how people from different backgrounds have influenced one another over centuries. This can help to dissolve boundaries that separate communities today, encouraging mutual respect and reducing conflict. For example, archaeological discoveries in the Middle East have shown how ancient civilizations like Mesopotamia and Egypt engaged in trade and cultural exchange, underscoring the long-standing ties between different regions. Understanding these shared roots can foster a sense of unity rather than division. Dialogue and diplomacy. In conflict zones, archaeology can serve as a neutral ground for dialogue and cooperation. Collaborative archaeological projects between nations or ethnic groups can build relationships that transcend political or ideological divisions. In places where identity and heritage are contested, archaeology can help facilitate dialogue by focusing on the scientific and cultural aspects of the past rather than present-day conflicts. Education and empathy. Archaeology educates people about the diversity and richness of human cultures, which can foster empathy and tolerance. By understanding the experiences and achievements of different societies, individuals may become more open to respecting cultural differences. Archaeology here shows that civilizations rise, fall, and interact with another, which highlights the importance of cooperation and the futility of conflict in the long run. For example, UNESCO's World Heritage Program promotes the preservation of archaeological sites as part of a global effort to safeguard cultural diversity. This not only protects valuable sites, but also spreads awareness of shared human heritage, which can combat xenophobia and nationalist extremism. Healing after conflict. In post-conflict settings, archaeology can play a role in reconciliation by helping to reclaim and restore lost or damaged heritage. This process can help communities rebuild their sense of identity and pride in their shared history, fostering healing after periods of violence or division. Reclaiming destroyed heritage can help rebuild a sense of continuity and belonging, which is essential for peace. Counteracting cultural destruction. During the wars and conflicts, cultural heritage is often targeted for destruction, either as collateral damage or as a deliberate act of erasing an identity. Archaeology stands against this destruction by preserving and documenting heritage, often risking political and physical danger. Protecting and conserving these sites provides a counter-narrative to the ideologies of division and violence, demonstrating that humanity treasures its shared past. Groups like the International Committee of the Blue Shield, for example, work in conflict zones to protect cultural heritage, and their work is an important form of peace building, aiming to preserve not only the physical evidence of the past, but also the cultural identity and continuity of affected populations. As a conclusion, I could say that while archaeology, employing all modern cultural technological tools alone cannot solve conflicts or bring about peace, it plays an important role in fostering understanding, preserving shared heritage, and facilitating dialogue between communities. By highlighting the common humanity of different groups, archaeology promotes a more inclusive and peaceful worldwide and worldview. Studying on a collaborative and interdisciplinary manner our ancestry past, which becomes a most valuable palimpsest, it provides realistic solutions that are a source of inspiration, understanding, peace, because we must learn from our past to continue a progressive, safe pace to the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving from archaeology to nanoscience, Uroš Svelbar from Josef Stefan Institute. How can we contribute to that? Here's the microphone.
Thank you very much. Nanotechnology itself is a challenge, and everyone could ask himself or herself, why nanotechnology, and how nanotechnology on the other side could actually contribute to peace. I think, as Professor Mainzer said, we need facilitating tools, and I believe that nanotechnology is one of those facilitating tools. On one side, we can use it very well as a resource for efficiency and environmental sustainability, like making good things like water desalination very quickly in the areas where it's not possible. We can actually harvest sustainable energy. The development of PVs and photovoltaics, it's a significant sign how this can actually progress, so we get more energy, more sustainable energy out. And at the end, it's also a good source for pollution control as well as remediation. But we cannot forget, on the other side, it also contributes to improving global health of populations. So we can use it to disease treatment, to diagnose more precisely, more quickly, and so the medical treatments are done properly in very short periods of times. Then on the third thought, we can think of reducing the scarcity and inequality. Here we are talking about the food, so nanotechnologies can contribute in different cases to the improved food security, as well as, on the other side, source to energy, which we actually need for all the beneficial parts of like artificial intelligence. Here we cannot also forget non-lethal defense, as well as peace keeping technologies, cybersecurity, and preventing technological escalations, especially through the quantum computing, quantum encryption, etc. And at the end, this kind of technologies could produce new jobs and technological diversity within the case, as well as at the end mitigate climate changes very efficiently, because it has been proven that on small scales we can more efficiently capture CO2 emissions and then make a closed loop where we can hold all those gases which we are actually using emitting. Basically, we can use them for something what is beneficial, so we can actually do from waste, so waste can be a resource as well. Of course, at the end, we should not forget about the dark side of nanotechnologies, as Professor Zidanchik mentioned in the beginning. When during the wars, when the nuclear energy and nuclear bombs were developed, they were actually looking for a peaceful tool to develop, to progress the science. So here we should not forget about dark scenarios which nanotechnologies could bring at the end. We have been seeing this in the movies like nanorobots attacking, targeting people, etc. So we should be always diligent and smart in the way that we should handle nanotechnology as well as we can handle AI, and regulate it and seek sustainable use of it. Thank you very much.
Hilderitzi said something like language is power. So we're now moving to the power of lexicography for peace. Damir Boras, Rector Emeritus of the University of Zagreb, your contribution to that one.
Thank you very much. If you can hear me, can you hear me? Okay. I will shortly start with the meaning of lexicography. It is art or practice, I would say also the science of how to compile knowledge databases. And these databases, are not something new because it's lexicography, historical lexicography spans for 5,000 years, from cuneiform tablets to papyrus dictionaries, and also now in digital form of dictionaries, encyclopedias, text corpora, and so on. So how it affects peace? It affects peace just by having in their text knowledge about our history, about our societies, but the problem is that the term history has two meanings. One is aspectual, private. I see some facts of history in one way. The opposite side, victories and defeats are always the same in a factual sense, but they are different for different nations and so on. So it should be very careful when you compile those databases. And it is important to stick to several principles. When I was elected for the first time as a rector, in my, how to say, first speech, I stressed that we should reintroduce to our societies biblical values. That means some values which will respect all other people, not only us. And that is forgotten in our society. And it is, of course, I worked not only as a rector, but also as a dean of faculty of humanities and social sciences. And I established their department for information and communication sciences, and also chair for lexicography and artificial intelligence. And I worked also as vice director for information sciences at the Lexicographic Institute Miroslav Krleža of Croatia, which was a very renowned institute, who produced so-called maritime encyclopedia, so good quality that Encyclopedia Britannica wanted to try to buy the data, but of course in communist system it was not so, let's say, accepted. And of course, these principles means in fact development of democracy. And in the same way, when you have democracy, you can see and hear and obey different aspects of knowledge databases. That is most important. In many encyclopedias, although they are very good, there are many political aspects very subtly involved in data. For example, in Encyclopedia Britannica, they don't argue about differences among northern languages like Danish, like Norwegian, like Swedish, because they were 120 years ago one language. But they still claim there is no different Croatian language, different Serb language, although they are very similar, but not the same. That is political difference. And what is most important to have? To have clearly revealed all these different aspects of different people in articles of these knowledge databases. And that is not always the case. But artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT, could easily compile texts to reveal all those differences and different aspects. When you have different aspects, you can decide by yourself what can be true or what cannot be, and how you can approach, for example, to the Palestinian-Israeli questions, which is clearly not lightly resolved by just looking at data. And this is most important. So artificial intelligence should be introduced to compile lexicographic databases, but whatever sort they are, and not avoid different approaches. Only in that way we can be, let's say, society or world society who can resolve those problems and approach these problems in the right way. So that means unbiased, politically unbiased, personally unbiased, culturally unbiased, unbiased from the points of view of different groups in the society, like gays, Me Too, let's say, movements, and so on. And ChatGPT is a very good tool, just the tool, as Professor Meissner said, but it can be used carefully with good, how to say, task given to them to compile those databases in that unbiased way. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we have just received a suggestion how the global superbrain could be improved, but we're staying with the language is power, and we'll move into the graphic engineering or graphic language as power for peace. Marin Milkovic, Rector of University North. Your thoughts about that?
Thank you. Hello to everyone. I have tried to prepare myself for this just, I would say, short speech. What can I say about graphic arts and technology and peace? So, because comparing to ChatGPT, it's something opposite. It's something retro from the past. But the idea of graphic technology in the past was spreading of the words, spreading of the knowledge, the idea of multiplying the texts from the past and learning of the people from the Gutenberg time until the now and before from the manuscripts was something altruistic idea to become better person, to know more. And now we cannot approach to the graphic technology like just this is the printing industry from the past who is dying. You know, the newspapers are printed in lower and lower quantities because we have digital information. But definitely when we speak about graphic technology and what it means in the past, one of our very famous writers from Croatia said that the box of the into that time wooden letters was stronger than 1,000 rifles. Maybe this is not the case now. It was in the past, but definitely what we should think now in these new times, it's that spreading also of the false and not true ideas or thoughts or war thoughts through the printing medias is not correct. When you have something online, you can double check it from 100 sources. But if you have something printed in front of you, this is all what you get, especially if you don't have internet in that moment, especially in some rural areas, even maybe electricity. So even when we when we see and look about agendas and goals of European Commission, how to stop disinformation and false ideas, and maybe ideas who are propaganding the war efforts. Maybe, I'm hoping never in the future will be case that the printing history in the future will be completely different from the true. Maybe it will be, I don't know. What graphic industry or graphic technology can do, it cannot do so much, because now everything what is produced and printed, there is also online version for checking or double checking. But idea from the beginning, from the past, was to produce honest and true information. And this is, I believe, the most beneficiary for the peace. How to find right information. And I believe that it will be also the goal in the future for the digitalized graphic technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And one last person zooming in from Romania, I believe. Eden Mamut from the University of Constanta. We can see you. Let's see if we can hear you as well.
Hello,
It's
can you hear me?
Seaside, Black Sea Applications. Hello, we can hear you as well. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like to congratulate the organizers for this very interesting debate with unbelievable, let's say, nice and very challenging ideas that are now from the perspective of the prestigious academicians and scholars in the service of peace. So you know very well that now the Black Sea, we could say, is practically in fire, because on a daily basis, even passing sometimes from Romania, we are following drones and bombs very close to us, from Ismail on the Danube Delta to Kiev and different other geographies. But also there are, let's say, the so-called unseen wars, like it was the election process that was yesterday in Chisinau, Moldavia, which is also an open field for different types of battles. So in this context, I would like to express my deep gratitude to the executive president of World Academy of Art and Science, Gary Jacobs, for the support that he took in the partnership with the Black Sea Universities Network. We are very active for almost 1 year to develop different type of activities. We had a special debate on the use of artificial intelligence in, let's say, the service of peace building in the Black Sea region. And of course, among the ideas that have been also discussed here, the first very basic idea is the following. First thing first, to not make something worse, to make something that could worsen the situation. So artificial intelligence is a powerful tool. And we see that actually the very initial users of artificial intelligence are the warfare manufacturers, and they are used in different types of battlefield operations. And from that perspective, I think the major contribution of the scholars is how to minimize this kind of let's say, very bad and deadly involvement of artificial intelligence in this kind of conflicts. The second aspect is, of course, to support the science diplomacy, the cultural diplomacy, or the soft diplomacy, by providing very reliable and very valuable scientific evidence base for decision makers. And from that perspective, we could say that there are outstanding contributions and many ideas have been already presented by the previous speakers. And finally, I would like to mention that we have to identify, using this kind of strong tools, those aspects that are uniting us, that are bringing us together to the same table, and is offering the background for negotiations, for getting to know each other positions, and for facilitating the partnerships. So from that perspective, we are also collaborating with the different other institutions, and mainly I would like to say also the support that WAAS is giving to the BSUN. Recently, we had also a meeting at the United Nations event dedicated to the Summit for the Future. And we have several other initiatives related to the United Nations University and their activities on peace. And let's hope that also with the support of the institutions that have been involved today, we shall be able to find a pace for peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Romania. President Jacobs, after having listened to 1.5 hours of thoughts, recommendations, and ideas, what is your now conclusion about this comprehensive approach to peace diplomacy?
First of all, I'd like to thank Professor Manzer for partnering with us, with the European Academy, and to Professor Toplak for taking the initiative. To make this meeting possible. And I'd like to thank all of those who have participated and contributed, because I think you've done a wonderful job of illustrating some of the essential dimensions of what we have in mind when we talk about a peace offensive. And I'd like to, my objective would be to answer a couple of questions about the overall purpose and why we think not only this is necessary, I think we all understand the seriousness of the issues, which Ivo Schloss outlined very briefly in the beginning, but why we think that this can make a difference. Just for background, for those who are not acquainted with the work of the World Academy, very briefly, we were founded by eminent intellectuals and many scientists and many physicists concerned with the result of the impact of science when we developed the nuclear energy and nuclear weapons 75 years ago. And that taught us that that science has a responsibility, that academia has a responsibility for addressing the issues that have been created by the creative works. And that's our origin. We've spent the last 65 years trying to understand better why the strategies up until now have not been more fully successful. We still have nuclear weapons and nuclear threats and even accelerated threats of nuclear weapons today than before, and what we need to do differently. And to abridge it very much, I'd like to say that this initiative is an effort to draw a synthesis of the insights and lessons we have drawn about what is necessary. And the presentations we've heard are a good illustration of the type of approach that we think is necessary. It's clear that traditional diplomacy by itself, it has not and will not by itself be sufficient to solve the problems we face. In fact, in some sense today, with all of the technology, with all of the prosperity, with all of the knowledge we have, the threats today and the sense of insecurity today are greater than they have been probably since in the last 75 years. And we have to ponder and ask ourselves, how is it when we're doing so many things that we think are important for our progress, actually it can be creating a greater sense of insecurity and threats? And I think our answers, the answers we've discussed today, are indicative of the type of solutions we need. We clearly need approaches that are not just local. We're not trying to just settle one dispute between two countries internally or in a region. We have to look at the global issues as a whole. And a peace offensive has to have as its measure what we can do at the global level. Not necessarily or entirely, certainly, through global institutions. Our global institutions today are not yet mature enough, not yet empowered enough, as Anna said, to really deliver the force we need. But our scope should be greater. We shouldn't be relying either on the multilateral institutions or even the political leadership of countries alone, though they are certainly very important. This is too big a problem to be solved by diplomats or on their own, or by institutions or political leaders on their own. This is something the whole humanity has to participate in. And when we talk about a peace offensive, we're talking about a global social movement in which all partners, all stakeholders, all sectors, we're working with the business community, high technology companies, national science academies, universities, parliamentarians, international organizations of 180 parliaments of the world, religious organization. This is too big and too important to say it's the responsibility of somebody. It's all our responsibility. And I think what we illustrated today by the very interesting, insightful, brief presentations of our speakers is to illustrate every discipline, every field of activity has a relevant contribution to make, and none of us should sit back and wait for somebody else to solve these problems. Even the archaeology, it was a very resourceful analysis, that even archaeology has a very important role to play. We need all to be part of this, and that's what we mean by the peace offensive. We're optimistic. We're not underestimating the challenges. We'd be very naive to do that. We know we're facing unprecedented challenges because the speed of global social evolution is unprecedented. It's never been this fast. It's never been this complex. We've never had all the people of the world being influenced by each other in such complex, intensive ways. We've never been seeing our technology develop so quickly. All of these things together. So we need a new strategy. We need an integrated strategy. As some of you have mentioned, what we call a transdisciplinary strategy. This is not the purview of any specialized group. We all have to contribute, and we have to understand the relationship between all the work of each of the disciplines, the impact of food on stability, the impact of refugees, the impact of climate change, the impact of our economies and our financial systems. All of them have a contribution to make. We can't leave any of them out. So we need a multidisciplinary, a multi-stakeholder, a multi-sector, we need to recognize the urgency. We have no time for moralizing and no time for pointing the fingers. As one of our speakers mentioned, it has to be a value-based approach. We are not here to indict and condemn and say somebody's responsible for all our problems, and if only we get them, we've solved them. Humanity is responsible. Our economy is responsible. Our science is responsible. Our governments are responsible. Our financial systems are responsible. Our educational systems are responsible. We all need to come forward and see what we can do to contribute to being part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And I think that's the spirit in which we've come. what we wanted to accomplish, and I'm really pleased by the efforts and contributions of all of you in it, is to put this forward as an invitation. We as an academy, ISA as an academy, Alma Mater as a university with a vision. Many of you may not know what I only learned recently, that 50 years ago to the day, tomorrow, this, our Professor Toplak envisioned a university of peace and development. And now we're coming together. We didn't plan it that way for the dates. We're coming together today to say we need an institution whose goal is the peace and development of all humanity. And we hope that this moment and this initiative and what we call this vision of peace offensive will be an invitation to stakeholders from all sectors of society to come forward and join us in a movement that really has the power to change things. We know the challenges that come from any technology. We've heard about some of the tremendous prospects from it. I believe in the depth of my heart, we have the capacity to make this work. We have the resources and the knowledge to make it work, but we can't do it in a fragmented way. We can't do it by trying to find who's the culprit is causing all our problems. We have to all step forward the way our fellows did when they founded it and say, we are responsible and we're going to come forward. And the we is not just scientists, it's educators, it's bankers, it's business leaders, it's the diplomats from every type, it's religious leaders, it's all. If we do that, this intensity, the difficulty, the unprecedented challenges and threats we face can give us the power and the motivation to do what we haven't done before, is to break out of our conservatism or our tradition and do what really needs to be done. And that is to reinvent our institutions and work together globally to make it happen. So I have the privilege and responsibility to say we would like to close this meeting by formally signing and promoting and offering up to all of those who are participating in this meeting, as well as all other institutions from different sectors, to join us in a commitment. A commitment. We're not just saying we need to bring peace. We're talking about commitment, the strategy that's defined in the original paper, which Donato published in our journal Cadmus. We're saying we're looking at incremental initiatives that can be taken at hundreds or thousands of points. Unilateral initiatives where we're not waiting. If somebody else will do something, then we will do it. We can do it from our side, and it can reduce the tensions. It can reduce the suspicions. It can build the trust. We're looking at, let us each do what we can do and generate that positive momentum that evokes reciprocal responses. Our measure of success will be when we take an initiative, it evokes a reciprocal response from somebody else. And that's the heart of what we mean by the peace offensive. So, Professor, could I invite you to sign the declaration? I think you're... And this will be distributed and made public. And we hope that Professor Toplak and Alma Mater, Europa University, will be the first to join us in this, because you have been so instrumental. You have been the catalyst for making it happen and set a stage for all those who are present and participating, and all those who this reaches out, that you will join us too. Thank you.
We have 4.
You're working as hard.
Of course. We have copies for each of you. That's one photo with each of you filled into the declaration. Perhaps each of you holding the declaration for the photo. President Jacobs.
Stand up
Yeah.
and
Do it this way.
Yeah.
so.
Thank you very much to both presidents. President Mainzer, after having heard all of that, perhaps just some feedback to the situation, to the suggestions and recommendations. And the microphone. They're still on.
In some sense, it was overwhelming for me. And it started this afternoon when we met for the first time. And after some comments, I thought there is someone who is thinking in your way, and I hope it was vice versa, because we discussed about the of the beginning ideas of your World Academy. And it was so similar to my youth experience in the academic life. You spoke about Albert Einstein and Russell. And I was so impressed because these were my heroes, as for several people, of course. And now to learn that we, the European Academy and the World Academy, are so close, even personally, in our ideas, that was very overwhelming for me, and a very important personal experience. And I think we will cooperate and go on in this way. Thank you.
And thank you very much again to all of our presenters today, which gives me the pleasure to announce dinner that our Rector Toplak is inviting you to now in his residence. We will leave from the lobby in a few minutes. I would at the same time like to thank all of our online participants. I hope you've enjoyed this very, very interesting and dynamic session, and have a good evening to wherever you were listening to us from. Thank you. Thank you very much. And bon appetit.